All right, it is time for Friday Reads. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you this video. In my Friday Reads videos, I share how my reading has been going, including what I finished, what I've started, and anything interesting I'm carrying over week to week. Usually I have a little bit of everything, but this week I have a lot of everything, so we're going to get right to it. First up, I finished Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte. The subtitle here is A Proven Method to Organize Your Digital Life and Unlock Your Creative Potential. This one I haven't talked about much. I must have talked about it in all the books I'm currently reading because I carried it over from last year, and I really enjoyed it. It's a nonfiction, productivity, creativity type of work about organizing your thoughts, different systems to be able to do this. And it's one that I read it on Scribd. It's available there on ebook. It might be audiobook as well. But I think I do want to get a hard copy because it's like one of those things that I'm like, oh, there's like this part of the system that I would like to implement, and ooh, how do I want to firm up this? And I may or may not implement all of the things that are discussed in this book, but one of the things I liked about it is that it linked productivity and creativity, and not a lot of books I think talk about those things. And I actually feel like often the same principles can often be used for both things, but people don't usually put them together. And as someone who loves both productivity and creativity, it was actually a perfect storm for me. So I really, really enjoyed it. But I think I will get a physical copy so I can work through some of and see which of the things I want to implement, because I am feeling very like I have lots of ideas in my brain. I have lots of ways of organizing information and projects and stuff like that, but it's like all over the place. It's different things for different things. And my biggest challenge is always like the things that you have to do again and again and again, like weeklies, monthlies, and yearlies, and those things, or even dailies. And I do have some systems that I use for them, but I don't like having to like rewrite them out. Anyway, maybe I should read the checklist manifesto next, because maybe because checklists are good for repeat things, but this is also about getting stuff out of your brain so that you can use your brain for other things. So, yeah, it's great. And I think it's got a new energy to things. If you read like Getting Things Done, he does reference that book, and I think this is sort of like an updated version of that, because I think one of the things that happens with productivity, I love reading productivity books. I'm a big fan of productivity, but I think one of the challenges that they sometimes have is that we've fallen into productivity for the sake of productivity, and our productivity because you have to be productive because you only have X amount of time. And I don't think that's a great framework for that. The things that you do often, or the things that you want to reference, you want to have a good system for that to free up energy, energy, space, mind, creativity, to really put your mind creativity to use. So it's not productivity for productivity's sake. It's productivity so that you can get to like the good stuff. So anyway, I really enjoy it. It only came out last year. It was actually up for the Goodreads Choice Awards. I don't know if it won. And I think it might have been like the only book I read that was up for the Goodreads Choice Awards, because I don't tend to read in-year releases. And I finished this year, so it technically wasn't an in-year release, but I really enjoyed it. Let me know if you read it, and if you read productivity books, do you have a favorite? Getting Things Done is by David Allen. I skipped over that. But this one was great. I loved it very much. He also has a YouTube channel and recently did a bit of a summit-ish kind of thing, and talked to other people, big people in the field. So that was really great. I'm really happy that I finished that and enjoyed it so much. And then I also did finish I finished up to volume 4 for the Decagon House Murders. This one I've mentioned a few times before. I'm reading the manga version. There is a novel for this, and the manga is 5 volumes. So I've read 4, and I'm waiting for the 5th from the library. I am really enjoying it, but now that I know that it's a novel, I'm kind of kicking myself just like a little bit, because I can feel like, oh wow, like, because I'm not sure where things are going to go, and I know I'm never right in my predictions, and I can see a lot of possibilities in terms of what's going on. But I just feel like so far as the story has been told, that I think reading it in a novel version would be a really good choice. I am really enjoying it as a manga, but I didn't realize it was a novel. That being said, I should have held off till March Mystery Madness. This would have been a great series for me for March Mystery Madness, because I usually have to read, like, I usually read a comic or something like that, because I'm very slow reader at mysteries, and mysteries and thrillers do not really lend themselves to my reading style, which is reading like 30 things at the same time. 5 active, and oh my gosh, I'm currently reading. Let's just move on. I did finish Miss Julie by Strindberg. This one I talked about last week. I didn't love it, but I really do feel like I need to watch an adaptation to get a sense of what it's trying to say. I imagine there were a lot of scenes that with good actors would be excellent. So I'm hoping to watch an adaptation. Canopy has 2. It has the recent one with Jessica Chastain and Colin. Which of the Collins is it? Colin Farrell from In Bruges. So I'm looking forward to that. They also have a 1950 Swedish version. So because it's a Strindberg is Swedish, I think maybe that would be a smarter one to start with, and maybe that might be a more quote-unquote traditional, whereas the more recent one is actually set in Ireland. So, I don't know. Anyway, if you've seen any adaptations of Miss Julie, do you have a favorite? I'm really curious to see how I feel about it, because the story just itself, I'm kind of like, and then I did read the Wikipedia page, and I'm like, is that, that's not really how... So I want to see it, because I think in the hands of good actors, there's a lot there. So I don't know how I feel about the themes, and I don't think I agree with the themes. There are some that maybe, but there's some of the gender stuff. It was the gender stuff. I'm kind of like, but it's from, I can't remember at this point. I can't remember. Well, there's a film from 1950, so it's earlier than that. I think it's 18 something. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. Because gender stuff before 20 years ago often is not great. But I did finish it, so yay for me. I did also finish Conan, The People of the Black Circle. This one took me like 4 weeks to read, which I am just like, what? But it's the longest of the short stories, or it's the longest of the shorter work, so I'm glad about that. I did enjoy it. There was some great adventure stuff in it, and some good, I did feel like quite like several different locations and different people, and so it was quite... There was more to it than some of the other stories, but I just wasn't expecting that going into it. The stories generally are more like 50 to 70 pages, and this one was like 130, so it was a lot. I am doing well in terms of reading Conan. I think for the chronology that I'm working through, I think I've now hit the halfway point, so I'm really excited about that, and I do hope to finish all of the works that I'm planning on reading by the end of the year. That being said, I do sometimes feel like when I read this, it makes me resist reading other fantasy works. This is more sword and sorcery, and it's a bit more adventure and fighting, but there is magic in it, so I don't like, because I only tend to read one book per genre at a time, I don't like the fact that I'm reading this makes me resistant to reading other fantasy, so that's throwing me off a little bit, and I'm kind of like in this moment where I'm like, do I really want to dedicate the rest of this year to reading this, when mostly they're between... I give them sort of 6.75 to 7.25, and some are lower, because there's a lot of outdated, not great stuff in terms of gender and race. So I'm a little stuck on that, but I do like a lot of the adventure and the fighting element. So I am stuck, but I did finish it. Go me. That part I'm happy with. And then I did start, as I mentioned, a few things. So my one addition, like my active choice pick this week was The Iron Warrior Returns by Michelle Willingham. This is the first in the Legendary Warriors series. This is a medieval historical romance, and I'm only just started. I've only read sort of like the first 2 chapters. It follows, it's a male-female romance. So far it's following them and one of their brothers and one of their half-brothers, all of which were kidnapped when the area they lived in was taken over. So they were kidnapped and they escaped and they've sort of been in hiding for a year, and now they're going to scout back the area to see what's happening. And I think the male lead is sort of like the what's that word? He would have been like the leader's son, or he is who was the leader's son, but I imagine the leader was killed because the place was overtaken. It's a little hazy. Anyway, so there's some kind of tourney or something, and whoever wins the tourney has a chance to win the hand of the daughter of the new leader. So he's thinking, hey, maybe I'll go do that, and then I'll get the sort of rightful lands back, and do that thing, So anyway, and so I don't know, like that's not the best description. So they've been on the run for a year, and they've been all training and fighting together, including the woman who's the love interest, which I like, and does happen that has happened a couple of times in Michelle Willingham's works, and that's one of the things that I like about her works. But the woman who did learn to fight, she doesn't really like to fight, she just likes to fight because she's fighting with this guy, so that's not my favorite. But anyway, it's early days. I'm sure there'll be lots of good stuff, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this one goes. The second one in the series, I think, came out this year, I think. And I'm working my way through all of her works, so I thought I would start a new series, because why continue the 3 other I've started instead of starting the new one? Yeah, okay, so I mentioned my choices this week are a little, but I am enjoying it, and it's nice to be back to reading her historical romance worlds. I really like it, and I do find not tons of historical romances set during the medieval period. It's often, there's so much Regency out there, and I'm not a fan of Regency at all. So I love that Michelle Willingham does both medieval and also Viking romances. So yeah, so we started that. I also started Goosebumps Horrorland. Wow, you can barely read that. Monster Blood for Breakfast. This is the 3rd in the Goosebumps Horrorland series, which is a bit of a different series because how it works, as far as I remember correctly, you get like a Goosebumps novel. This one's a Monster Blood one. They had 4 Monster Bloods in the 62 version of Goosebumps, that classic run. And so this sort of takes the idea of Monster Blood and inserts it in a new story. So you have a story about that. And then I think at the end of it, there's like chapters that pertain to Horrorland. So the first Horrorland had like 4 chapters, and the second one had another 4 chapters, and so on and so forth. I think I read one in the middle, and I was like, I don't really understand this, but from my understanding of Remembrance, I think that's what it is. Why I'm reading this is because I'm kind of feeling like I want a kids book series to read. I did actually finish Goosebumps last year, the 62 titles. It took me like 8 years to finish. I did it very low-key, like I really wasn't, like, until a couple years ago, I wasn't even trying to really finish. But I found with this one, I'm not a huge fan. It does use one of the tropes that is not one of my favorites, which is the protagonist has a best friend who he doesn't like, and so he's really mean to. And I don't like the ones that have friends that aren't really friends, or people that are enemies, or people that are mean to each other, or siblings that don't like each other. So I'm struggling a little bit with this one. I'm not super interested. I've read several Monster Blood ones before. I can tell where it's going, but every once in a while there's a huge blind side, so it could happen. So anyway, I don't think it's the kids book series for me. And I think you do have to read them chronologically if you want those bonus chapters to make any sense. But a kids book series that I'm enjoying a lot more is The Owl Diaries by Rebecca Elliott. I started this one. Oh, that really is not the best. That's a bit better. Not a great angle, but you can see it better. So this one's Eva and the Lost Pony. This is a really great illustrated kids book series that's all in this sort of collage kind of idea. And Eva is an owl, and she's just so sweet, and it's just about the adventures that she has, and it's written in in diary format about like how her day is gone, and I imagine in this one there will be a lost pony. I mean, that's a bit more my pace. I'm also continuing on Waiting for Spring. Given that I am up to date with the Decagon House murders, I thought I would switch back to Waiting for Spring. I had a couple of volumes kind of come in from hold. This is much more my pace right now. This follows a girl whose goal is to make some friends, and then she accidentally befriends the cute boys basketball team because they go to the cafe that she works at. I initially had some hesitations about this one, so thank you to everyone who commented about this one, and because I was kind of like, I don't know, but for right now it's sort of more slice of life, and that's a bit more my pace, a bit more just sort of like, you know, it is, I do find it a bit repetitive in terms of some of the things, like within the issue or the volume. I feel like that we go back and forth on the same things a lot, but it's also very sweet. So I am enjoying it, and that's just the truth. And then in terms of what I'm continuing, a bunch of stuff, but mostly, not mostly, but I'm reading The Greatest of Marleys by Linda Berry. So this is a collection of comics. I think I mentioned it last week. It does take a fair amount of time because they're 4-panel comics and they're quite small. I'm reading it on script. It's not the best. Sometimes when their handwriting is very small in the comics, it's a little hard to read, but I have read some of them from back in the day, and I know the character of Marley's from a lot of the Ernie Poots comic and other works that I've read by Linda Berry, and I have enjoyed that. So yeah, so that's what I have been reading. It has been a bit of a weird week. I just, like, as I mentioned, I started like way more than I expected, and I keep on sort of tussling back and forth on this idea of the fact that when I read, you know, the fact that I read a lot of shorter works, it makes my numbers go up. I'm not trying to hit a certain number. I give Goodreads something so it stops asking me. I really genuinely don't care how many books I read a year. Or titles. I try and always say titles because if you look at all of this, like how many were books? Like this is a book. This is a book. This is a kid's book. Is a short story, play, manga, nonfiction. So it's a book. You know, kids book collection. So I don't read a lot of books, and I keep on struggling with this, and I did add it to my annual goals this year, and I have had reading novels as a goal, and I do struggle with, should I be spending more time and attention on that? And like, the thing is, I don't have to. Like, if I enjoy reading shorter works in comic collections and manga, like in kids' books, like, that's all good. But I do feel a little strange that I read so much and I don't read a lot of books, and I don't know, or novels or whatever. And I struggle with that. It's been for so long that I've sort of tussled, like, mentally about that, and I'm like, wow, I just haven't cracked the nut of what's going on there. Do I care or do I not care? Like, and I don't know the answer, and I feel like I must care if I can't just put it aside. You know, what would it be like and I guess part of it is like the whole, like, you know, all of the books on my shelves, I recently did twice a year, I try and refresh my shelves because I don't have enough room to have all of my unread books out. So I put most of them tucked away in sort of storage bags, and I shift things twice a year and to refresh what's available to read. But then I look at them and I'm like, wow, I usually end up reading like almost none of these. And I do also do an empty shelf, which makes a huge difference. And on the empty shelf, I put what I finished. And I do have about 5 titles that I've finished this year. So I do finish things. Anyway, that's a bit rambly. I didn't even mean to bring that up, and I guess maybe I should run with it because otherwise it'll just like won't come to any conclusion. I don't have a conclusion about it. But do you? Maybe a good question is, do you have these things where you just sort of like go back and forth on yourself saying, should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this in terms of your reading? Because I feel like it's a bit strange to feel some sort of doubt in my choices. You know what I mean? Like, I can read whatever I want, and I'm a big supporter of all reading counts. You know, like, it doesn't matter what you're reading. And also that as long as it works towards your goals, that's the only thing that matters. But for me, of course, I have a million goals, and so do I have too many goals? Yes, I have too many goals. I like having too many goals. When I've had less goals and more defined goals, I enjoy things a lot less. I did end up doing my January stats though, and I hit 43 of my goals, which is great, and it's 5.5% of my overall goals for the year, which is on pace. I try to hit 50% by the end of the year, and I've currently decreased that, not decreased, I did change last year to wanting to finish my goals by Halloween. So that actually puts me completely on track. 5.5%. If you times that by 10, you get 55%. So if I stay on that pace, I will be done by October. But I don't know. I guess it's just feeling I'm not feeling quite settled in all of the things. And maybe it's also, I should just be like, not worried about it because I have had a bit of a tough week. And this year hasn't quite settled into what feels like will be its regular pacing of things. And when that's the case, I'm like, less likely to be consistent on goals and be like, hey, that looks good, hey, that looks good, hey, that looks good, when things aren't quite as settled. You just are not. I feel myself, I am less likely to stay true to the plan when things are a bit in upheaval. Now, there's no big deal if I read a million things or read whatever, but I guess it's probably I've changed some of my habits a little bit, so therefore that shifts other things. Like I've made the active decision, especially with manga series, if I'm enjoying it, I'm just going to stick with it. And so that changes things because that makes it so that I'm not starting as many new series, which is maybe a good thing. But I also have a goal to do an A to Z challenge for manga. But I only hit one title because I read Decagon House Murders, and I enjoyed it, so I stuck with it. Normally, I would get at least 2 letters in a month, but I only got the 1. So, I felt like going back to waiting for spring, so I did. So, I don't know. I'm just feeling a little all over, and but I do continue to question, like, is it smart to read so many shorter works? Would it be better to spend more dedicated time on novels? And I have not come up with an answer to that. And I guess maybe it's just fine, and maybe that's why I keep on going back and forth, and maybe I don't want to feel like it's just fine. I don't know. It doesn't feel settled to me at all. But and I continue to think about it, and I continue to ponder about it, and it's also like I like variety, and I like trying things out, and that just means more titles. It really does. I don't know. And I think limiting to one new title a week, I do feel like, and that's usually a novel or a nonfiction, sometimes a play, but I do feel like it seems so empirical, and I feel like definitive, and that's only 52 new starts a year. That's so few, and that got me a little like freaked out. So I'm a little struggling with that. But anyway, sorry, this just went into Rambleville. So I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know let me know, what do you do when you have sort of like you come back to the same thing again and again, feeling like you need to fix it or change it, or you feel unresolved with it? Because this is something that I just have been going back and forth on for, at this point, it's well over a year. And I'm just like, why does it feel this way? Like, why is it? I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. So I don't know. Maybe I just don't want to change things enough to try something different, or I don't want to totally put novels to the side, especially since I have so many. I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. So let me know, how do you deal with ideas that you have that are unresolved, or that you keep on coming back to again and again? I would love to hear your thoughts on that. I do have some new videos coming up on the channel. I hope to have the first in my 200 favorite films countdown from 2011 and earlier. That's part of my like retrospective that I'm doing for my 10-year Booktube anniversary. So I'm hoping to have that out on Sunday. And then I actually have a book haul, a completely unexpected book haul. I wasn't even going to do a video for it until I picked up all the books, and then I was like in one like go, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's enough for a book haul. So hopefully that'll be early next week. So that is something to look forward to. I hope you're having a wonderful day and have a wonderful weekend ahead, and I will see you soon in another video. Thanks so much for watching.